Foot in the Door follows creatives on their journey in their industry. From bright leaps forwards to the frequent steps backwards, these stories are underpinned by the music which has guided our guests on their career path so far. Join me and my guests on Melodic Distraction every fourth Sunday of the month to get a behind-the-scenes insight into their lives. Follow in the footsteps of the people who are already doing it with Foot in the Door. Welcome everybody. You are tuned into the first ever Foot in the Door with me, Joe B. This is a new project for me I've been working on for a while now, and I'm kicking the series off today with my good friend Sam Nowell. He's a designer, artist, lover of UK culture, and yeah, a very good old friend. During today's show, we will be talking through Sam's innate creativity, his passion for fashion, and commitment to his DIY attitude. And also why confidence is a key to success. Sam, welcome.
Good afternoon, Joe. Thank you for having me.
How is it going, mate?
It's very good, mate. It's very rainy today, but not too bad. I've had some cheese on toast.
Cheese on toast?
Yeah.
Heavy.
Like big cheese on toast, mate. So that was the pre-game. But
okay.
Yeah, I'm all good.
Oh, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
It's been a while since we last saw each other.
It has been, yeah.
How's your journey up here? I feel we were on the same train, weren't we?
We were on the same train, and I only told you after we got off the train that we were on the same one. But yeah, it was fine.
What are the chances of that?
Well, I mean, we were both in London this weekend, so...
Okay, and we both needed to be...
We both needed to be here for right now, so it does make a lot of sense.
Cool. Well, as you know, Foot in the Door is exploring, learning, and hopefully informing people about how you got to where you are. But do people know what you do? Because I certainly do.
Yeah.
Could you explain?
Well, I make clothes, really. I used to make clothes out of sort of materials that I could find in charity shops or at car boot sales, and sort of moved on a little bit from that. And now I'm sort of working on stuff that reflects me growing up in a village. So it's all very village life, all very English, sort of your traditional tweeds, ginghams, things like that. But yeah, I guess that's what I do. Yeah,
it's an incredible journey. What you've really been on. I mean, we went to university together, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
And you started your sort of endeavours, your fashion making, I guess, or your design at university.
Yeah, well, that was it. It was a couple of my friends sort of lent me a sewing machine and taught me how to sew. And then I remember in third year, we'd all be, people would be going out, and I'd kind of be working in my room on this sewing machine, and then come downstairs to drink with people whilst they went out, and then they'd go out and I'd work on whatever I was working on, and then they'd come back for the afters, and I'd come back down and join them for the afters. You might have been there one or two times.
Yeah, I'm sure I was. I just remember you being a very studious, keeping yourself to yourself, hard-working individual at university, I remember.
Yeah. A lot of that, I think.
That's good.
Yeah.
Have you always been creative, Sam?
It's a funny question, I guess, because I think so. I think, if I want to look back at it and people that influenced me when I was younger, my grandmother, she was a teacher, she was a school teacher, and every time me and my brother would go around to hers, we'd sort of paint, or we'd be drawing or reading, or like doing these things. And I think definitely early on she influenced me into sort of that expressive thing of like drawing or like creating or sort of using your imagination. But yeah, I think, I don't know, I've always enjoyed that sort of thing, and enjoyed just, I don't know, the kind of the fun aspect to it, and just playing, like, no one's asking me to do this, which means that you can just do whatever you want. It's not being graded. You're not trying to get anywhere with it. Yeah. I've always said that that's kind of what I'm doing with it. But
you've always been individualistic, and you're very unapologetic as an individual. Would you say?
No, I'd say, definitely. Sometimes to a fault, I think. I think there's some people that can attest to me being unapologetically myself. But yeah, no, I think it's important. It's definitely important, especially when you're, the stuff that I make is so personal.
It is.
And I'm really probably skipping forward a couple of questions here, but everything that I make is based on something that I've lived, or, something that I really like. So you put your heart on your sleeve, I guess, in a sense, when you do that. Definitely. So you have to be yourself, because you're making work and you're externalizing how you feel and who you are.
Do you ever find that it's tricky? You're talking about putting your heart on your sleeve. being judged for things that you care a lot about. Is that? Do you think that's ever something that's tricky for you to deal with?
I try not to listen. Well, I don't think the things that I care about, a lot of people care about. I don't think there's a big market for village life down in London. People caring about flower bouquets and stuff like that, or wicker baskets in rolling hills.
How do you see? Because it's funny you say that, because I've just been down in London and everything is crazy down there.
Yeah.
Like compared to life in Liverpool, which we were just talking about before we went on air.
Yeah.
You must see life through a very different lens to other people. Like, how are you making what's in your head, how you see the world? How are you making that into art? Like, I think that's such an interesting...
I think being in an environment that's so far away from the environment that you grew up in or that you're obsessed about, like I am, it only brings it further out.
Right.
And like I always, it's always funny because I'm down in London, like so far away from this village that I grew up in, which is obviously up near here. It's near Manchester.
And what is that village?
It's called Lymm.
Lymm.
Lymm. It's a beautiful little place. I'd go if you're over 60, but if you're not, then don't bother.
Okay.
It only brings that further out of you, I think, when you're taken away from that environment. You romanticize it a lot more, and it just makes me want to create things about it, because I almost feel that, in London you're so far away from that, so you have that freedom to kind of create and romanticize it and explore these different avenues that I wouldn't do if I was still living in Lymm. But yeah, in terms of, going back to a question about what people... being afraid of what people care, I don't think you can't be that way if you want to be creative with whatever you do. You can't be afraid of what people think. I think a lot of people are creative, and they're creative because it's cool, or they go into a creative field and adopt a style that's cool.
Right.
But like, I think you're just one of people that are just doing all of that, and you can see them, and people see through that.
I think that's very true.
You can definitely see through that.
Yeah.
But
you think you would prefer to be... maybe your work wouldn't be as favourable, but as long as it's true to you, that's the most important thing.
It's like I'm not bothered by trends. I'm not bothered by, doing what people expect.
No.
Which again sounds like it's a bit of a strange comment, but I was doing all this stuff which was repurposing, blankets or towels or all of this, and I was being hailed as this sustainable king, this designer that was really sustainable, and in actuality I was sustainable because I had no other choice. I'd go to charity shops because that's all that I could afford. I'd buy all this fabric that was second hand, and I think that was a pathway that was kind of carved out for me, whereas if I was to get my head down and keep cutting up towels or rugs or curtains or wall hangings and making them into stuff, there was a definite path for me there, but it didn't inspire me. I wanted to be taken more seriously. I didn't want to just be the guy that cuts up towels and makes them into trousers.
You're definitely not just the guy that cuts up towels.
Thank you, Joe. That means so much.
No, I wouldn't say that's all you are. Let's talk music. So
yes.
What's the first song? We're talking London based?
We're talking London based, yes.
Yeah.
Band called Jockstrap, who I know you're a fan of too, because we went to the gig in Liverpool.
Yeah, we did
together in February.
It was a very, very good gig.
It was a very good gig.
I couldn't see anything the whole time because I was stood behind a very tall person.
But it's not about seeing it.
It
Jerry.
wasn't exactly.
Yeah, you're hearing it. This song's its greatest hits. That's the name of the song.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. It's off their new album called I Love You, Jennifer B.
Why have you picked it?
I've picked it because, a lot because, coming back to Liverpool and watching them was brilliant. And my friend, James, who is from where I'm from, but he lives in London, he introduced me to them. And I remember living with him, and he'd always play their stuff, which wasn't out yet, because he knows them, and I'd get into them from that. So, yeah, it's an amazing song, and I think they're really exciting.
Sick. Let's hear it.
Let's do it.
So let's go back to you, Sam, and talk a little bit about your past. Since we went to university together, you've been pretty busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, definitely, yeah. It feels like a long time ago that I was back here in Liverpool, but yeah, I have been.
Your whole sort of design is focused around clothing.
Yeah.
And I just want to understand, like, where did that come from? Where did the passion for the clothes and the design
The passion for fashion.
The passion. I was trying to avoid that one, Sam. I was trying to
You've
avoid
already
it.
said it twice.
I know. So
Do a passion for fashion counter in the bottom of the screen.
can that go on the dislike list?
Yeah, the dislike list. Passion for fashion. That phrase.
Yeah, it's awful, isn't it?
Yeah. Thanks. But it's well. I mean, we went to uni together. I studied architecture, so I never studied fashion, and I think if you look at my stuff up close, it's pretty obvious that I didn't. But I think, I remember being sat in first year in these lectures and whatnot, and, architecture is such a relentless degree, right?
Yeah, it
It's like
was.
7 years. It's like only architecture and medicine that's 7 years long.
I remember you guys. It was hard for you guys.
Yeah, like, a lot of the architecture students live together. And it's just fucking, we could do a whole hour show on the stories from that
Right,
house
let's
that
gloss
year.
over
But,
that one.
I studied architecture, and like very early on, you're kind of told that like not a lot of you will make it through the 7 years.
Wow.
And it's like I'd known then that I wasn't there just for architecture.
Yeah.
The things that you learn in architecture, such as like Photoshop, Illustrator, even the design process.
Yeah.
Which is like designing, developing, testing, going back, tweaking it, doing it again. It's very similar to clothes, but it's also similar to every other sort of creative field. But I just got bored of making things that were never going to get built, right? And I needed something just to do that could kind of satisfy me creatively. And obviously you want to be yourself when you're at uni, so the easiest way to be yourself is to dress different to everyone else. So I was like, well, I can draw clothes. We got given this sketchbook, right? And I'd just be drawing clothes in it instead of drawing fucking windows or whatever other people were drawing. And I realized I could go home, make a pair of trousers, wear them the next day, and like that would satisfy the urge that I had to. They weren't good, right? They definitely weren't good items of clothing.
You were experimenting.
But yeah, I was just, I always said it's just like documentation of just I think that the phrase that I'm going to use is, which is also probably on the dislike list, documentation of my trials and tribulations. Like I was never making a brand.
No.
I was just posting stuff online that I was making. And if you look back at those early posts, you can see me kind of build it up. I'd make shorts. Then I'd make trousers.
Yep.
Then I'd kind of make like trousers with a zip in it. Or like trousers with a welt pocket in the back. Then I'd make a jacket. And I was kind of like bit by bit, I was like kind of learning how to make clothes. And I think a lot of people, it's very daunting. Like it's still daunting to me. Like I still know that I know that I don't know anything at all about it. But is
that not a good thing? Is that not you embracing your innocence to something in a way? And then by not having that like prior knowledge, it means that you can just do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah, of course. And like, you definitely don't do it right. There's definitely people that could tell you that I don't make clothes the right way. And I don't. I really don't.
But do you care?
Yeah, I do now.
You do care?
I do now.
Right.
For a long time, I didn't care. But then you realise you're working against yourself, right? And like you're not... The way that I learned how to make clothes was to go into charity shops, buy clothes that I liked the look of.
Yep.
And I'd cut them up, look at how they were built, and then make the exact same, say, for example, pair of trousers in towels.
Okay.
And then I'd do it, with a jacket that I really liked. I'd look at it, I'd sit there with a seam unpicker. It's kind of like, a seam unpicker.
You're dissecting.
And you kind of unpick it so you can see all the panels of it, and you learn how it's put together, and then you put it together yourself, but in your own materials. And that's kind of how I learned to make it all, and to like do all these things, and then you'd experiment. You'd kind of like add a pocket there, or kind of cut that up.
That's so cool.
Thank you.
It's self-taught, I think, is the main thing that you're getting at there. Is
definitely.
But the passion. Let's not bring that one up again. But yeah, the motivation and the relentless creativity is what has inspired the work.
Yeah, definitely. And like, because you're doing it for yourself. Like we used to go to uni, come home, make these clothes, go back to uni in the morning. People would be like, I don't know where you find the time to do it, but you enjoy it, right?
Yeah,
anything you enjoy, you make time for. It's like, it's a hobby.
All right, let's fast forward to the present.
The present.
You released a line of clothing, a fashion show. What?
Yeah.
You put it into the words because I'm not.
I put on a show.
Right.
I don't like the word catwalk. I don't like the word runway.
Yeah.
But I put on a show, like a sort of collection of clothing that I'd made.
And is this clothing, just for people who are unfamiliar with the work, is this clothing for the everyday person to wear?
Not particularly, I don't think.
Would you say it's more art, or is it more like style over substance? Where we
Yeah, it's definite style. I mean, it's wearable, but also like because of the quality of it and the quality of my sewing, it probably wouldn't be wearable. But it's the ideas there, you know. I've always kind of said like I've got the ideas, and for such a long time I had conflict in my mind because something that I had in my head wouldn't end up looking the way that it would in my head when I'd make it.
But now you can make it.
I'm getting there.
You're getting there.
I'm definitely getting there. But yeah, back in September, I'd been working on a collection for a long time, which was called "Am I the It in British," which I kind of didn't like the name of it after it came out. But
Am I the It in British?
it was me questioning my upbringing and like this village life that I'd lived. And like my parents grew up and they lived what I call the English dream, right? So they went to school, they got a job, they got married, they got a car, they got a house, they got a mortgage, they go on holiday every year. You know, my dad mows the grass every 3 weeks.
It's Trainspotting introduction vibe.
Pretty much, right? Yeah, and like, you know, that's it. And it was almost like you can stay in this village and you can go and work with your dad, or you can go and work in the village and you can meet a nice girl from the village and you can buy a house because you're bored, or you can have a kid because you're bored, you know, or you can.
You're really like assessing and dissecting.
It's village life, man.
Yeah,
I could list you 10 people that are like that, and you know that's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine, right?
Right.
But it wasn't. It was me deciding whether I wanted that or whether I wanted to kind of like leave and go to London and do what I'm doing now. But obviously, you know, a couple of years ago I was forced back home. Which is a very intense way of saying that COVID happened.
Yeah.
And I spent more time forced back home. I was banished back up to the village. Get out of London.
So can I just stop you real quick? You talk about village life like you don't like it.
No, I love it.
But so how is what's this like retrospective analysis sort of living in this sort of Groundhog Day simulation?
Yeah, that's what village life is.
So do you think do you like that?
It's a wonderfully simple way to live, right?
But you don't live that life.
No, but I kind of wish that I did. It's a weird thing.
Is it contradictory that you comment on this and then don't live the life that you wish that you kind of
Yeah, maybe I'm a poser. I'm a village poser. I think I enjoy the romanticization of the village and how simple things are, and that everyone knows everyone. And you know, you go and get your paper, or you go and get your bread, or you go to the fishmongers and get your fish, and you go to the greengrocers to get your veg. Yeah. And you know, it's like I'll ring my mum and be like, my mum's a dentist, right, in the village, so she hears all the village gossip, right? So I'll ring her, and we'll get talking, and she'll be like, "Oh, you never guess what happened to so and so. You know, down at number 54. Well, her son, right? You know her son. He went to your school, a couple of years older than you. Yeah. It's that kind of thing. It's like all that. You know, we've got this newspaper, this like magazine, and it's called Village Life, right?
So is that where the names come from for this sort of?
Yeah, but I've got it tattooed on me. I'll show you later if you want. But this Village Life thing.
Show me now. See it. Oh,
it's there.
Fair enough. And is that how it is written?
That's how it's written. That's the font of it. Right. And obviously, I got that tattoo and came home, and my mum was like, oh, "What have you done that for, Sam?" But I think there's definitely. It's funny that you picked that out. There's definitely this conflict. Like I love it, but I think I only love it because I'm afar. Like I said earlier, when I'm in London, sorry, I can romanticize it, right? But if I was living it, I wouldn't like it. But yeah, what was the question?
No, there wasn't really a question. I was just worried. I just wouldn't. It's interesting to see where your inspiration comes from, and the things that you pick out, and the way that you're living and observing life is very different to most, I would say, in a way. But that's not a bad thing.
No,
I think it's just interesting to analyze that. I want to talk music again though now, Sam.
Let's do it.
And you've picked out a less well-known tune.
Yeah.
Harks.
Harks.
Can you tell me a little bit about this? Where's this one come from?
So I came up to Liverpool, I think, before Christmas. Yeah. I try and come up quite a bit and stay on Danny's sofa when he'll have me. But you know, we'd sort of Danny, as you know, he still lives in Liverpool, and whenever I come up, I'm happy to be taken around the city by him.
He's a great host.
He's a great host. There's
Shout out
many
Danny
people.
Delabastide.
Shout out Danny Delabastide. But he's living a completely different life to the one that we lived in uni. So whenever I come up, he's, he knows of this happening here, let's do this. And one of the things he said was, there's a gig happening, which is his friend's band, and we should go to it. And obviously you go in with, what is it, blank mind, open eyes, whatever the phrase is. I wasn't expecting that I'd like them. It was just something to do, right? And if you can find any clips of them performing, which you can on YouTube, they're brilliant. Like, just so much energy,
raw,
and like, I'm not saying they amp you up in the crowd. It's to the point where you're throwing bottles around and that, but it's just like you feel it. There's music that is just really, really energetic
and reminds you of Liverpool.
It reminds me of Liverpool and reminds me of that night with Danny. So
Fantastic.
This is Scratch and Bite by Harks.
Harks there with Scratch and Bite.
Banger. Proper
Love
banger.
That tune.
Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah, fantastic pick. Sam, you've picked some really good songs so far. And you've got some really good ones coming up.
Yeah.
It was hard. It's good to see how this music is shaping. You've a diverse range of inspiration, really.
Yeah, definitely.
Has music played a big part in your career?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't come from a massively musical household. I'm not musical at all. I never played an instrument.
No.
And, my dad would just listen to New Order, to be honest, which isn't terrible at all to be brought up on New Order. I'm very grateful for it.
Very good.
But yeah, it's played a massive part. I think, especially when I'm in the studio and I'm sewing, I've got music on all the time.
Yeah.
When I'm cycling to and from work, I've got music on. There's very few times that I don't have music playing. So of course it changes, how quickly I work and how, it influences my mood massively.
That's good to hear. And I think music for me is a massive part of my life.
Of course.
But I think for some people, the music that you listen to is how you gain inspiration. And we've talked about where you get inspiration from, which is very much retrospective, looking back at your family, looking back at where you came from. I wasn't going to talk about this yet, but I think now is appropriate. You are a Northerner.
I am, yes.
And you're very proud to be Northern.
Yeah.
But you've only picked a select few Northern tunes today. I thought you were going to come in and be like Oasis, Stones. Do you know what I mean? Like, I thought that was what was going to happen, but you haven't done that.
No. I think, I am proud to be Northern. I feel like, especially living in London, you get even more proud. It's that thing, where you leave a place and then you become even more proud, even more passionate about it. I think when I first came to Liverpool, I'd tell everyone that I was from Manchester, and I'm not. I'm from Lim. I'm from this tiny village, and you kind of run away from who you were when you first go somewhere, and then I think slowly but surely you bring it back to actually a more truer version of yourself.
You have a strong sense of identity.
Yeah, I think I have to if I'm making clothes that are based on my upbringing.
Yeah,
it'd be a bit silly if I was trying to hide other aspects of myself.
For sure.
Instead of doing that. Yeah, I love being Northern, especially being in London. Bloody Southerners, mate.
Yeah, they
do my head in.
They're terrible, aren't they?
Do my head in.
No, they're not. They get a bad rap, and I think Northerners are better. Just to put that one out there.
Yeah.
So I want to give people the understanding of you talked about this sustainability and the DIY aspect earlier, and you're saying that's not your rap. That's not like everything that you do, but it's super important to highlight that that helped you get to where you are today.
Yeah, of course.
What would your advice be to someone who has no idea about how to make clothes and wants to get involved in doing something like that?
Just, take a sketchbook with you wherever you can. And if you don't know how to make clothes, first draw them.
Right.
And they don't need to be these perfect fashion illustrations. I still don't. They're just horrible scribbles. But I know what I like. Everyone knows what they like.
They do.
Like, you know what colour you want your trousers that you make to be. You know what cut you want them to be, even if you can't draw that, in your head, and that's all that the drawing will be. It will be for you. And I think, going into charity shops, if you don't want to spend loads of money on fabric, going into charity shops, I was just trying to find the most fabric that I could for the cheapest price.
Right.
So I'd find like bed sheets, because you get a lot of fabric with bed sheets, like curtains, like towels. It's all like a couple of quid in these big bins in charity shops. And just going home and cutting it up and not really having any plan, but just being willing to learn and put the time into doing it is how you get started. You know, go into charity shops and buy a jacket, and even if you don't like it, spend time to unpick it and learn how it's all put together.
We're talking a lot about knowing what you like to do, knowing
Yeah.
what you like visually,
Yeah.
aesthetically. One of the next song that we're playing talks a lot about things that they don't like.
Yes.
It's a great tune, and it has the northern aspect to it as
It
well.
has the northern, it has the Scouse aspect.
It
to
does.
it.
Why did you pick this next song?
This song, so I found this song, my friend showed me this because he knew that I'd really, really like it. And I picked it because when I did my show, I think the music, because music's so important
When you
to
say
me.
you show, your
My
fashion
fashion show, when I did my show, not radio show. Sorry, Joe.
It's okay.
When I did my fashion show, the music was such an important part of it. The music that had accompanied the models walking and wearing the clothes. And it always is, it sets the mood, right?
Mm.
And I was like, how do I sum up this whole village life or just this whole like kind of theme of Britishness that I want to portray? And this song was the obvious pick, right? So it's pretty much this Scouse woman. I can't remember her name. I think it's Josie Jones.
Yeah.
Just listing off everything that she hates. And they range from stuff which is pretty like political, pretty intense, to just like red sock in the whitewashing.
Is it Imperfect List Part 1?
Yeah,
Andrew
there's 4
Weatherhall.
parts.
Big-
Andrew Weatherhall.
What's it? Big, fat, excellent.
Big, hard, excellent
Big,
fish.
hard, excellent fish. But before we play the song,
Yeah.
you listed out a couple of things that you dislike on your. Are you willing to share? I really agreed with the stolen pint glass one. That is a terrible.
We were talking. I have a list on my phone. I'm going to pull it up as reference
Give me a couple.
of things that I dislike and things that I like. So on the dislike, the one that you just mentioned, drinking water from a stolen pint glass at home. Like when someone just has like an Amstel glass on the side of their bed, man. Like
Such an ick.
open top sandwiches, dislike them. Biros,
Mm-hmm.
shit pen. Brompton bikes,
Terrible.
clear mugs are nasty, man. Like,
I've seen a clear mug.
Oh, it's not
No.
nice. It's not nice, man. People who had Sky TV when they were younger.
Okay. Well,
You can tell who had Sky TV when they were younger, and don't try and tell me you can't, because you can.
Okay. Well, on that note, let's hear a snippet
A snippet.
of this amazing song. What a great song. It's pretty intense at times though.
Yeah.
She starts with Adolf Hitler, and then gets, I don't know.
And the next one she says is the dentist.
Yeah. So
Which
they
is fair
kind
enough.
of. Yeah, I hate the dentist.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I do. I do hate the dentist. Do you?
Well, I mean, my mum's a dentist, so
Oh well. That
no, that's gonna fall a bit flat.
Okay. Well, let's move on from that
Move
one.
on swiftly.
Work experience, Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah. What have you done that's helped you get to where you are today?
What have I done? I mean, I think that the main thing that you're asking about, right, is my time at Fred Perry.
It is.
I worked on the design team for Fred Perry.
And what does that brand mean to you? It's very iconic.
It's iconic. I mean, you know, you could have a polo shirt that didn't have any laurel wreath on it, and you'd instantly think of Fred Perry, especially in England.
Yeah, 100%.
It was wonderful to have the opportunity to work there. I remember when I got the job, I rang my dad and said, "Dad, I just got this job at Fred Perry. I can't believe it." And he goes, "Sam, that's amazing. Which store?" And I'm like, "No, in the head office, in the menswear team, designing the polos."
Which store?
Which store? Oh, fine. You really think that I love architecture, don't you? Yeah, no, it meant so much to me, and you know, to have the opportunity to even see the archive, you know, that Fred Perry archive and the offices in Farringdon. There's a huge room of just everything that Fred Perry's ever made. You know,
That's crazy.
I held the very first Fred Perry shirt in my hand, which is like from 1952, 1953, and it
Wow.
looks exactly the same as the Fred Perry shirt you can go and buy today. It was wonderful to sort of get that insight into a brand that I've loved for such a long time. You know, they always say it's the uniform of youth, right?
Yeah.
Everyone has their Fred Perry story, and that's the thing that they were clear about when I got the job. They said everyone's got their own relationship to Fred Perry. I'm sure you do.
Yeah, man.
Whether it's wearing it at the parties when you were younger, whether you've still got a couple polos in your wardrobe now.
Just it for me, it reminds me of my dad.
Yeah.
It's just like my dad has Fred Perry polos, and
Yeah.
like I've never actually owned a Fred Perry polo,
You know.
which is crazy. Well, it's not that crazy. But yeah, it always reminds me of my dad, and it epitomizes sort of like indie culture for me, like sort of that kind of punk mods esque.
Well, that's it. It's subculture,
It
isn't
is
it?
it is, and they do a lot around subculture.
Yeah,
Their
they're
recent
brilliant.
campaigns have been crazy.
They're brilliant at, championing subculture, championing, especially musicians, artists that, are part of the subculture that's happening today. Because, subculture isn't really a thing anymore with the internet.
No.
You've not got these style tribes and these music tribes anymore that would hang out at record stores and, be very obvious with what music they listen to. But Fred Perry did a brilliant job of bringing them all together under one roof. And I think, subculture is so muddled now because you've got, like ourselves, we're into so many different artists and genres. And back in the 80s, 90s, you were limited because you'd buy an album and that would be the album that you'd listen to for however long.
Yep.
And you had to be into that. Whereas now, like with Spotify or with whatever, you can play whatever you want whenever you want.
That's so interesting that you take it like that. I kind of think that's a positive thing, but I can see why it also has its limitations in a way. Like having access to so much stuff, in a weird way, it does have limitations.
Yeah, of course. It means that, well, it's brilliant, of course. We've got the world at our fingertips with the internet and whatnot. We can search whatever we want.
Yeah.
And
why did you look at me like that?
I don't know, it just sounded funny.
Okay.
We can search for whatever we want, music-wise. And but back in the time when our parents were our age, it wasn't like that. And it is brilliant. And Fred Perry, like I said, do a brilliant job of kind of keeping that going and introducing you to new artists and new sort of movements. But I think there comes a time when it's like, how long can you rely on the heritage of a brand?
Yeah.
It's
How did you get to be with Fred Perry, and also how has Fred Perry helped you with your own design? Because that's a really important aspect of your career, like working for someone like that.
Yeah, I did an event with one of my friends at our studio, and one of the people who worked in the design team at Fred Perry came to it, and we got chatting, and then a couple of weeks later I had a job in the design team, which was pretty nuts. It's still nuts now because I didn't study fashion or anything.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But Fred Perry influenced me, I think, because it was like my first experience of seeing a big company. They're a massive company, and there'd be like this big design team all working on Illustrator on the computer and like cutting up little bits of Fred Perry shirts and sticking them together and like working in this very dynamic environment. And then you'd have like the product development team on the floor below that then would like call you down to see like samples. And I think the most nuts thing was the fact that it was the first time ever that I'd come up with a design for something but not had to labour over designing it. And like a week later I'd just get an email being like, do you want to come and see if this is how you thought it would be?
That's cool.
And I come down and it was like so weird that I'd designed this thing, but I hadn't been part of the process of making it. Because obviously when I'm in my room at uni, I'm drawing it in my sketchbook, I'm making it. And then by the end of it,
every
it's
stitch
there.
is going into
Yeah, exactly. Whereas I was like, God, I've been so removed from this.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that massively. I enjoyed just the designing because, like I said before, I know I'm not the most talented on a sewing machine by any length. So to have that kind of distance from that part of it was quite nice, and just to give more time to designing. But Fred Perry, it's simplicity, it's culture, it's being able to build a brand that has such a strong identity and is so true to itself.
So identity-wise, though, we were talking about the Northern thing earlier. Fred Perry, I know, obviously based in London, but Fred Perry does have a Northern sort of. For me, anyway, it grips me towards the north. Yeah,
well, Fred Perry was Northern. The man himself, he was from Stockport.
Exactly.
So it is. I think it's very. But I'd say that the north has always been more about identity. Especially in Liverpool. Liverpool's all about identity. Manchester, to a lesser extent, has been proud about where you're from.
Yeah.
And I don't think that you have that in London as strongly.
I agree with you, bro. I agree, and the thing that comes across from this conversation, and the thing that kind of ties all of this together, is identity. How you reflect your experience, how you reflect your life, whether that's retrospective, looking back at stuff, looking back at where you've come from, or how you're living in one of the biggest cities in the world, basically. the northern part of your personality comes
Yeah.
through and shines. And I think that is epitomised in this next song.
Yes.
This is such a good song.
It's such a good song. It's Sweet Leaf of the North, right?
It is Sweet Leaf of the North.
Appropriately named Sweet Leaf of the North. This is a song that our friend, Neve showed me this. Did Neve show you this?
No, Neve didn't show me this, but I had heard it before.
Neve showed me this song, who's a dear friend of ours from university.
Right.
And it's wonderful. It's just this bloke from Leeds. They're from Leeds, right?
He is.
From Leeds, just telling this story about, well, you'll hear it.
You will hear it.
Sweet Leaf of the North, it's wonderful. And this is, identity. You kind of listen to this song and you're like, yeah, this makes me feel proud to be Northern.
Fantastic.
And kind of just rambling on about nonsense.
Which we kind of have been doing for the past 45 minutes.
Yeah.
This one, Mick Artistic's Ego Trip, Sweet Leaf of the North. Sam, we've not got long left.
No.
And I want to talk about something which is a personal character trait.
Yeah.
It is confidence.
Yeah.
Confidence is an important part of being successful, I think.
Yeah.
And in order to get your message across, you need to have the confidence.
Mm.
How is that key for you? How has that been key throughout your career?
I think it's that. I think there's being obnoxious and there's being like outwardly obnoxious. Like you can be obnoxious and confident in the correct ways, the correct channels, and you can do that to your close circle of friends.
Yeah.
I think when you start making claims, and that becomes arrogance, right? So there's confidence and arrogance, I'd guess. I think confidence. I think it's important because it's incredibly cheesy, but if you don't believe in yourself, then who else is going to? Like, you need to believe in the stuff that you're doing, right? It's so important. Your heart needs to be in it because people are going to see right through that if your heart's not in it, or you don't truly care and live and breathe for the things that you live and breathe,
Mate,
or you
100%.
say you live and breathe, sorry. It's confidence, I think a lot of people are sayers, right? It's so easy to say stuff. So easy to say you're going to do this and do that. I think
until you actually do it and
Yeah.
show the world that what you can do.
And it's accountability. If I say to you, I'm gonna do another show by the end of the year, it's accountability because now you're expecting me to do that.
Yeah.
And confidence, it's so important. I think it's just important if you want to be in any sort of creative field to have that belief. People get it mixed up with being obnoxious. But it doesn't have to be that. It can just be pure confidence and sometimes a bit of naivety. You need a bit of naivety, right? And you need a bit of just that unwavering faith in what you're doing. I remember this thing and it was like...
That's such a good way to put it, bro.
You need it, right? There's
Yeah.
this thing that I saw and it was like, you've got to believe more than anything. It's like, it doesn't matter if no one else believes in it. It was like using the film Sharknado as a reference. It's like, how the fuck is Sharknado a thing, right? But it's because that guy who came up with the concept
Did it
for
He
Sharknado
fucking did it.
week after week was like, guys, I really believe in this film. I've never even seen it, but by the
I've never
sounds
seen
of
it
it, it
either.
sounds shit, right? But that's why that exists in the world.
Mate, it's
And I
true.
think, confidence is so important. And if you believe in what you believe in, then it's easy to be confident about it.
And this comes back to the identity conversation that we've been
Yeah.
having.
Which
You
is,
need to be true to yourself, is what we're saying.
Yeah, definitely.
And do it. If you think you can do it, you can do it.
Yeah, and only create stuff which you really care about. Do not be bothered by trends or doing things that you think is cool or that you think people will like, because at the end of the day, you will not get that fulfillment from it in the same way that you will if you just create things for you and because you enjoy doing it.
That's your key message, bro. I feel like that is that's the one.
Yeah.
Do it because you want to do it, not because you think you should.
Yeah, and no one's asking you to.
No.
No one asked for a load of clothes that relate to village life. No one did. But that gives you the freedom to really do it how you want to do it. And yeah, I think that's the only way to create things, is to create things because you care about them, not because someone expects you to act a certain way.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's a really healthy place to end
Definitely.
what has been a beautiful conversation. Sam, I've really appreciated you coming on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
No, mate, it's been great to hear about your story, and I hope it's been sort of therapeutic for you to talk through
It
it.
has been. It's been lovely. Thank you for having me.
I've got you a present.
Go on.
And I saw it in a vintage shop on Lark Lane,
Right.
and I just thought of you.
It's coming out of the bag.
It's coming out the bag.
Oh.
It is a vintage
This is
commemoration of our late Queen's when she was what do you call it? I can't remember.
Coronation.
Coronated.
That's wonderful, Joe.
Yes, it's original.
It's original.
it's yeah.
What
And
should put in this?
I was gonna put tea bags in it.
Oh,
I didn't smell
give that a smell. Go on.
Don't smell it.
Pure metal. Smells like the Blitz. That's wonderful, though. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah, that's no problem at all. I feel like pride of place on the mantelpiece for
Yorkshire tea.
Yeah,
Yorkshire tea bags.
Yorkshire tea bags. Sam, it's been very, very, very wonderful having you on the show. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you for having
We're
me.
ending on another Taylor Sky remix.
Taylor Sky remix of an Injury Reserve song called Jailbreak the Tesla.
Yes, and it is a fantastic tune. Biggest love to you, and yeah, I wish you all the best with your future endeavours.
Thank you.
If you have enjoyed today's show, you can catch more from Foot in the Door on the Melodic Distraction website, via the Foot in the Door YouTube channel, and also in podcast form on Spotify. Until next time, keep stepping, and this has been Foot in the Door.